Okay, so welcome back to another episode of the A Team at New Beginnings Farmstead. I'm Elisa, and we have everyone with us today.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
So, the one thing I was thinking about that I wanted to get everyone's opinion on and find out where everybody stands, I had to go to DMV just recently to register a car that we purchased for our youngest, who is taking his road test very soon. And when I was doing the registration, of course, I gave them my driver's license, and they asked, we see you're not an organ donor. Would you like to become an organ donor? And I immediately said, yes, absolutely, and signed up for that. And I wanted to know about the rest of you.
I'm already an organ donor. I have a heart on my card, and I would give a live organ if somebody needed it. I actually, a couple months ago, I thought about the process of what it would go to. What organs do I have that are extra that I could give to other people that need them?
Wow.
I'm all about it.
Is that right?
Harvest my body when I die. Take all the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Take it now if you need it.
So have you
So
ever
what can
done?
you give up now?
And
Kidney, right?
Well,
Kidney?
yeah, but she could also have you ever had the testing done to see if you're a bone marrow match with anyone?
No.
Because you can do that, and they put you in the national database.
Oh, I should do that. And I was giving blood for a little while, which isn't an organ, but it is really. I mean, whatever. But my iron is too low. And so I stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if I were in the position where I was suffering and I knew there were billions of people on the earth that had the thing that I needed, I wouldn't want there to be a shortage because I would want someone to be giving of their body as well.
Yes, and I agree with you. And I will tell you firsthand, I had not been an organ donor because I had in the back of my mind, this concern that if something were to happen and you're in the hospital, they might not do everything if they know you're an organ donor. But what changed my mind was my experience when my father passed just recently.
Exactly.
And it was a very controlled environment. We were in the hospital with him when he passed. And so he passed in the afternoon, and then I got a phone call that night in the middle of the night that woke us up. And it was the National Donor Registry asking if we knew he was an organ donor or if we felt he wanted to be. And what's interesting is shortly before he died, I did have a conversation with him, and he laughed about it and said, I'm 90 years old. What poor person, that poor guy who's getting a 90-year-old kidney, like what could they possibly want at my age? Well, that's ridiculous. And when I got the phone call, I said to them, well, you do know that he just turned 90. And they said, well, we really are interested in his tissue and his eyes. And I knew that his eyes were not going to be viable because he did have macular degeneration. So I knew that wasn't going to be a thing because he had to have injections every 4 weeks in his eyes. But I did immediately say yes to his tissue being donated. And then the next day they called me. They needed to know that right away to prepare the body. And they said to me, all right, we're going to call you in the morning. We're sorry. It was like 2:00 in the morning when they called me. And they said, we have a lot of questions and be prepared to be on the phone for maybe 3 hours.
Wow.
So it wasn't quite as long, but it was about 2 hours that I was on the phone with them the next day. And they were asking questions about his history. They knew that he served in the Korean War. So there was a lot of questions about where he was located and what he could have possibly been exposed to.
Right.
And there was nothing that they listed that I thought he would have been exposed to, nothing I had heard of. I'm pretty sure if he had Ebola, I would have heard that at some point in my life. I was pretty close to my father.
He used to tell me you were his favorite daughter.
I was his favorite daughter for sure.
Aren't you the only daughter?
Yes, I am. Shh,
Okay.
Don't say that part.
Just checking.
So, but I got back in bed after having that conversation, and Judy was, was like, of course, who was that? And I told him
at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And she was talking about body parts. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice.
I was a little interested.
So, do you remember what you said to me?
No.
Because I said I said who it was and that they wanted to know.
Who would want a 90?
No, you
Oh.
said to me, and you said yes. And I said to you, imagine if one of our children needed a transplant to survive. We would beg God every day to send that, right?
That was at 2:00 in the
It was
morning.
at 2:00 in the morning.
You can't
kind of
ask
a
me those
serious
questions.
conversation
You
for
can't.
2 o'clock
I was
in the
gonna-
morning.
Come on,
Well,
you both know me. I'm
My
not
father
that
just
way.
died. So
You got to have at
there's
least
a lot
one
of
cup of
serious
coffee
conversation.
before that conversation.
But so yeah, we did donate his tissue, and I did receive a letter about 6 months later telling us that it had been successfully grafted to someone.
Oh, wow.
And
I mean, the feeling.
yeah, it was when I got the letter, I was quite emotional because you don't know, and they said, we're hoping that it is viable. And it was, and that was just amazing. And in between them harvesting his tissue and the letter, somebody I work with at my job, his niece was severely burned, and they didn't have enough skin for the grafts that she needed, and she had to receive pig skin. And when I was on the phone with them, and they were saying, really, there's enormous shortage of tissue, and for people who are suffering from horrible burns, that's the only thing that can save them.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts? What about you, Ryan?
I am not an organ donor
And why is that? What are your thoughts?
because not that I've never thought about it. I haven't gotten to a place, one, to think that somebody would want my organs. I've treated my body like an amusement park for most of my life. And I'm conflicted.
And what are you conflicted about? If your daughter needed,
If my daughter needed something, she could have it today.
no, I don't, not something that they could take from you.
Oh.
If she were put on an organ transplant list,
Mhm.
would your opinion change?
I don't know. And I'm not sure why I'm conflicted. I haven't really given it enough thought. I understand the benefits of it, and I would hope that if I had parts and pieces worth using, that maybe somebody could use them someday. But
Isn't that up to the doctors?
And again, like
Yeah.
when my father passed, who would have thought? I had no idea that at 90, he was 90 years and 9 days old when he passed. And what in the world would they, and I agreed with him when he said this to me just a few weeks before he died, like, how about that poor person? You're on your deathbed and I'm getting a transplant. Oh, and by the way, the person was 90.
right, it's like buying a car with 200,000 miles on it.
Right.
Yes, but when you are the person who is lacking the
Right.
organ,
Oh yeah, no,
you'll
I
take
understand.
well, I don't know. I can't speak for people who are lacking organs, but I would think that it would be you get
Yeah.
what you get,
Yeah.
and it's
But
better than.
but
what
I
you
really
currently
didn't.
have.
Of course, but I just didn't think it'd be viable with him being that old, and who knew? And I'm so grateful that I feel a part of him still lives on, and he was very caring and giving, and that's what he would have wanted.
And he used a tremendous amount of cream on his skin.
What was
And
interesting?
died with quite a bit of hair on his head that he attributed to using a brush and not a comb.
But what's interesting is that you're saying that the doctor asked you if he was an organ donor or if you thought he would, which means the doctor was proactively saying, I could harvest this person's whatever,
His skin is wonderful.
even if he doesn't have
It's
a
great skin.
donor card.
Well,
Let's ask anyway.
they
His
didn't
license was
have
good enough.
right his license. He didn't have his license for many years at that point,
Right.
and it was certainly not on his body in the hospital. His ID, he didn't carry anything on him, so I can understand the question. They didn't know, and
But like, what if I passed away and I didn't have an organ donor insignia on my card, but I had something valuable that they could harvest? Why wouldn't they be like, "Hey, next of kin,
I think they
this
are.
person has a
Yeah.
great blah,
Yeah,
blah, blah."
They probably do.
Now I believe they do
Does she want
because
you to
they.
fill in the blank?
they-
She has a great.
It's like Mad Libs.
She has a great looking kidney. Look at that lung.
So where do you stand on this? Are you an organ donor?
I am not currently, and I have given it a lot of thought. And like everything else, I find myself torn. The right decision is let them have it, because at the end, once I've made the determination, once I came up with I'm going to get cremated.
Okay.
So that's my wish is to be cremated. I don't want to be buried. I don't want a stone. I don't want no memorial. I don't nothing like that. I'm good. And once I made that determination, I said, well, that is just ridiculous not to allow someone else to benefit from anything. And we
Allow
joke,
someone else to live.
right? And, well,
Because that's life.
and so part of it is right on the I say the extreme end, but at 90 years old, right? But the fact is, they haven't found anything wrong with me yet at almost 59. So part of it is what happens if it happens tomorrow, right? I'm in a bad wreck or something, and that's it, right? I don't wake up in the morning, and there should be someone out there. I mean, clearly someone's going to want this face, right? No?
Mhm.
I don't know if they
I
could
don't-
transplant
I don't
that
think they
mustache.
transplant the face.
You're supposed to leave it blank and
The-
we fill in it.
Yeah.
That's right. Clearly
The
someone's going to want
mustache?
this.
It's mustache.
That's right.
I was worried what she would
Oh,
say.
look at his.
Sense of humor.
Yeah.
Can we transplant that?
Yeah. Yep. So yes, I haven't checked the box yet, but clearly I would want that because again, it would be senseless if they determine there is something that
Mhm.
can be used, just to burn it up in the fire.
Yeah.
Which is
I-
So
under-
why haven't
which
the
is
two of you checked the
understood.
box?
Well,
Well-
I will actually. If you bring up the box right now, I'll check it. I have no issues with it. So, yeah.
But there's a large subset of people who think that if you move on to an afterlife in which they believe without all your parts and pieces, that it will not be.
What will not be?
If you move on to the afterlife
Oof.
whole, you are whole in the afterlife versus not. The
Is that what
alternative.
you believe?
Yeah,
Missing-
what do you believe?
I don't know. I'm not really a religious person.
Then
But-
if you're not a religious person, so this should be its own show. But if you're not a religious person, so I had Aunt Emily Ziamia said to me once, she says, "Well, the Catholic Church had issues with cremation."
Right.
Mhm.
And I
Like,
said,
that
"Okay." And
changed
she says,
recently.
"So it's okay now. They believe it. However, the ashes must remain whole."
Right.
And they have to be buried,
Buried.
in
They have
blessed
to-
ground.
So I said, "Okay, let me ask you something. What happens to those poor individuals that are blown up in explosions, smithereens, vaporized, whatever happened, body parts all over, right? Whether they're soldiers or industrial explosions or whatever it might be. What?" She goes, "Well, I don't know about that." I'm like, "Oh, you can't
Right.
discount it, right?" So as far as my belief, I will say that I was raised by a woman who was a strict Catholic in a strict Catholic environment. I have since kind of a hybrid religion type of thing where I guess I'm picking and choosing what works for me, right? That type of thing. I still believe, I have an extremely strong faith in God and Jesus and everything else going on. However, I may have lost faith in some of the upper Catholic Church leadership because of everything that has happened over the years. But I still believe that there is a God out there, a higher power that, I believe after we leave here, whatever that means in whatever form that is, that it's the soul. And that the soul doesn't have to travel in the same vessel that what we currently have. So again, maybe I'm making it fit my agenda. I get that. I understand it. But at the end of the day, my parents were cremated both, and it had some effect on my decision to get cremated. But they have been buried in blessed ground in a cemetery plot. I don't want that. I don't believe in it. I came here out of nothing. I was created out of the love of two people. And no, that didn't work. All right, edit that out.
Something like that.
that. And at the end of the day, when I get cremated, I told you, put the pan on the car, drive away, and I'm good with it. And there won't be a stone. I don't need anything. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to put, and it's my belief, right? We're talking about personal belief in this case. I don't want a place where my kids feel some sort of sense of guilt for not visiting and then say, "Oh, Dad is buried here." I have not been back to my parents' burial plot since we put them in the ground, and I have no intention of returning there. I haven't seen my grandparents' headstone in 40 years since they were buried, and so to me, it just doesn't make sense. And like I said, I don't want. I just want them to have good thoughts, hopefully good thoughts of what the experience was with having me in their lives. But at the end of the day,
So, but all three of you are sitting here and saying that you would donate. Well, Ryan,
Well,
you're not
I've
sure.
registered, so I'm
But
definitely
up until
donating.
now, more than 40 years old,
Mhm.
and for more than 40 years, you have chosen to not check that
That's
box.
correct.
I had prior to my experience with my father, I did not check the box, but my children knew that I wanted,
Why not commit?
because I had it in the back of my mind that they wouldn't do everything they possibly could to save me if they knew I was an organ donor, which is it's
Right.
crazy.
We could save her, or we could save her,
Well-
fill in the blank.
So in this case, you're thinking about your integrity over the other person who needs the
Right, but if she
And
still
so are
needs
you.
it, if she
You are
still
thinking
needs
of
it,
your
and there's still
integrity as
hope,
well. You're saying
I'm saying that I haven't
I'm not
thought
going to go
about
into
it
the
enough.
afterlife. I'm saying I'm putting the other person first over my own self.
I would never do that. No. My kids,
So then you
my
shouldn't check the
family.
box.
No, that's not the case. Once I'm dead, I'm dead. What I'm saying is, if I can save someone, you say about putting the other person first. When I'm dead, have at it.
Then check the box.
I am. I'm going. I can do it now. Bring it up. Right. I have no issues with that. Right. That whether I check the box or not, I have committed to that. If they call, if something happens to me tomorrow, I'm good. Right. You know to tell them. But at the end of the day,
Did you know that?
Yes, actually,
Yes.
we've had many conversations, particularly since my father and
Yeah,
all of my
yeah.
children. I recently, again, my son turned 16, and that day went for his permit, and I hadn't had the conversation with him. And of course, I'm standing there with him in DMV, and they asked him, and he, without hesitation, said yes.
Oh.
so
And but I think it was because of the experience with my father.
yes.
Because a year after we had donated my father's tissue, we were invited to a memorial service for the state, and everybody in New York State, it was for the families of everybody who had donated. And we went, and my children came, and it was quite an experience, and it was very good for them to see the impact that donation has on so many people.
So someone having a firsthand experience with someone knowing someone or a circumstance of donation might be more likely to check the box than
I
someone who
think so.
I-
It impacted me. I would not have. Obviously,
I don't know if you really
Just
thought
for-
about it a lot until what happened with
I did not.
with
No,
my father.
I did not. Absolutely. No different than having kids changes
because you don't know the
you.
experience.
You don't. You can sit. I can sit here and talk to my son, right, who doesn't have children right now, and say, you don't. When they say, "Well, you blah blah blah," you have no. You can stop talking, right? As a parent, there's different levels of love, obviously, but until you get to that point, right, when you hold that child and know, who, right, and I'm not talking about everybody. I know there's people out there that can be difficult, but I'm talking about as that experience, holding my daughter for the first time, changed me. I am a changed man of that belief. Now, it's a struggle, right? It's a struggle because you're trying to be, a good parent, as well as, again, for us, it was a disciplined household. There had to be a certain level of, I'm in charge. This is my house. And,
Not our marriage.
yeah, that's true.
Different
That's true.
marriage.
Very different. Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt. However, but it changed you. And so that experience with her father changed my thinking. Like I saw it differently. There have been times in my life where I have stood corrected over some things that I have believed, and some of it's stubbornness, on a much smaller and maybe very different scale. I was an Android user, and now I'm an iPhone user. All those years that iPhone was out, I said, "Oh, this is great," and watching the competition between Android and Apple and the escalation of technology and how they fed off each other, and it all.
We're just slightly off topic.
No, we're not changing topic. I'm still on it. So when you mentioned about, you're 40 years after I get my license or whatever, now you're checking the box. Yeah, there's an experience that changed my belief, and no different than somebody, surviving a car accident going, okay, I'll never text and drive or drink and drive. Or,
Right.
Before then, you're okay. Keep the beer between your legs, have some French fries over the seat, you look over. Next thing you know, you're into a tree, you get up and you walk away from it alive and you go, okay, Lord, I'll never do that again. Right. So, I have no friends that have survived car wrecks after drinking, admittedly drinking, and luckily they didn't kill anyone or kill themselves, but they have since not picked up an alcoholic beverage after that. That was it. So, and there's some that said they didn't and ultimately went back. But So there are things that change your lives, experiences or people or encounters that change your life forever. It's just the way it is, right? So
When I had received the letter saying that they had successfully grafted his tissue on to multiple people, actually, I sent the text to all four of my kids to let them know that this just happened, because I was like a big teary mess. And my oldest daughter immediately called me and she said, I didn't know Poppy was a donor. And initially I thought, oh gosh, she's going to be upset. And I said, well, he wasn't, but I made that decision. And he and I actually did speak about it. And she was so emotional and overcome by her emotions. She was crying on the phone and
you were crying on the phone.
yeah, it was, big old mess, and trying to hold it together right now. She said, if I die, give everything I have. And I could not, that's my feeling now. I feel very strongly about it.
Me too. I feel really strongly about it. I wonder, I feel like I feel strongly about it because, well, I don't know. I don't know what the shortage is. If there is a big shortage, like how difficult is it to get?
Well, so that's an interesting question, because when we went to the memorial service, they had games. And one was, do you remember, like, they had this Jeopardy game that you could play, and in it was giving statistics for New York State. And
Right.
it is an outrageous amount of people who die on
Right.
the waiting list.
On a waiting list.
Right. And even my coworker's niece, there's no tissue at all. So they had to use pig skin.
Right. And so people are dying when we're walking around with perfectly healthy bodies where we could be providing something.
Right, because you're still walking around.
Right. It's
But
the
how many
decision for the
people-
afterlife, really. Right.
Right. But still, like, how many people die
Well-
every day in our own town?
Right. Well, also,
But are they waiting for something? There's a lengthy list of people that are waiting for organs and tissue or whatever it may be.
there's a blood shortage.
I know.
Right.
I
Right?
get texts all the time.
Me
and
too. I
feel
get
really
constant
guilty.
texts.
But it has to be the right organ, the right blood.
It has to be a match.
You have to be a match. So it's not just anybody can donate anything. You have to be a match for somebody else, and it has to be done in a specific amount of time.
I guess what I'm saying,
And you
I
have
think
to.
it should be opt out.
Oh, I like that.
Nah,
Right.
it's a personal choice.
Yeah. you
Opt
can
in.
opt out.
You can opt out.
Yeah, you opt in.
But-
that's an opt-in situation.
I think it should be opt out. If there is a shortage and everyone who dies has the same body parts, it should by default be that you donate it unless you opt out.
I think
Nah,
it will. That would make more people have a discussion with their family and really think about it,
Right.
because you would have to make the conscious decision to
Right,
opt
because
out.
just in the four of us, you would opt out.
I'm
Would
not
you?
saying I would opt out. I'm saying I haven't opted in. I have not checked the box.
Right. That's opting out by default.
No,
But when
it's
if
that
you
I
were to-
haven't opted in. There is a difference.
If
They're gonna
someone
look at him
you
and say,
loved-
we really could use that. Like,
If someone you loved was on a list and their health was deteriorating every single day.
I'm still healthy. I can't make that decision.
No. How would that affect you emotionally?
Well, of course, it'd be devastating.
Right. So with that in mind, if you are dead and no longer in need of your organs, your tissue, or whatever, your retinas, you wouldn't.
I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm saying I haven't.
And have you had that conversation with your family?
I have not.
again, it's only been a couple of years
Mhm.
since your father passed, and that changed my outlook to it. The other part of it too, obviously, was the kids and everything else. What I consider to be a decent family man, as much as I can be. I think my wife would differ with me as far as whether or not I am a good husband.
Of course.
But at the end of the day, it really was that experience that changed my thinking on it. No different than anything else.
Right. In the hospital, we knew it was obviously very terrible, that there was nothing that they could do, but they never, ever made us feel like they weren't trying or really, I mean, they just could not have been better.
Well, on that note.
Well, no. I mean, it's all good, right? Personal preference and belief systems and everything else. I mean,
Something to
what it
think
is, right?
about.
To some degree, there is quite a few people out there, right? My aunt being one of them, that believes that the body's got to be buried whole or cremated whole. So I would love to get her opinion. If I get the chance to remember to ask her, I would, and say to her, would you be an organ donor? Because maybe her religious belief about being whole doesn't permit her to, in her mind, permit her to do that.
Does
just
but and then I would like to know. So for someone who, in their religious belief, it does not allow them to be an organ donor, does it also permit them from being an organ recipient?
Prohibit. You
Huh?
can prohibit them.
Right.
don't know.
Right. If
Good
they're
questions.
not willing to give,
Right.
or because they say it's my religion or whatever their personal belief is, if their life is on the line, or
Well,
their
but
child's life is
if
on
it's
the
their
line,
religion, they would refuse.
if it's
they're not
truly
willing,
their religion,
right? They would,
if
right?
it's
and
truly
put
their,
someone
because
who was truly put in that
Your
circumstance
father
as
Right.
would
well,
say, there's no atheist.
there's no atheist in the foxhole, is what my father said.
right? But there are people who would choose to die over taking a perfectly good organ from someone else who's a donor because it's not their
But
belief.
I don't believe that is that you are really a devout. Which
Okay.
yes, there are a handful, but I think for someone to say no, I have to be cremated together. I don't believe that if I gave my kidneys that I'm going to go to heaven with that same person if their child was dying. I just don't. I find it hard to believe. Not in every case, in most cases.
But there are those that refuse modern medicine for their
Correct.
children, right?
Yeah.
Because of religious beliefs. So
Absolutely.
it is what it is, right? We certainly aren't judging anyone with religious beliefs.
No,
Like I
of
said,
course not.
I've had an alteration of mine since my upbringing, and I've been through, almost all of the Catholic stages, you could say, right? So, but the fact is, in the Catholic Church, the true Catholic Church, I am not what you would consider to be a good Catholic. I still consider myself to be a good Christian.
You're divorced.
But right,
We're
Right.
second marriage for both of us.
So that in
Burning in
itself-
hell right here.
Right. So I mean, well,
All right. All right.
Well,
just
that should be
you.
a different podcast. I think you're right about one of us.
Why is everybody looking at me? What did I do?
You did nothing. You did
I
nothing.
didn't do anything.
Anyway, it's definitely a topic. But if anything, it should be a discussion that you should have with your family, right? That's what we're trying to get at, because we've had it with ours, and there's disagreement even amongst our own family whether or not to do it. And had you asked me this question 30 years ago, I wouldn't check that. I would never.
Did you
5
check?
years
Did
ago.
you check your box when you got your driver's license when
Yes.
you were a teenager? Really good
Right
for
from
you.
the beginning.
Right.
And I didn't have any personal experience that would lead me to do so, just besides
But
feeling
admittedly-
it's the right thing to do.
Right. But admittedly, you were also, and I'll say this with the four of us sitting here, also the only one here that if you opened a dumpster lid and saw a plastic bottle, you would reach in and
Crawl
get it.
in? No, not reach. Crawl.
Climb
I
in.
I have to keep her from climbing through our garbage on the daily.
By the way, I found a pencil today on my walk and I took it.
Nice. Well
Free
done.
pencil.
See that?
Yes,
So
I've been on many walks where you collect garbage along the way.
I collected garbage in a meeting I had this morning. I was
So
collecting
if you opened the dumpster and saw a plastic bottle, you would go get it, fully knowing that one of us threw it in that dumpster.
That's true.
I don't know why everybody points at me.
It's true.
You coal miner. Anyway, that was from the previous episode. All right, wrapping up.
Yes. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the A Team at New Beginnings Farmstead, and please like and subscribe. And
We'll see you soon.
Fossil
see you soon.
fuels.